no way. So you want to look real hard. When a statistician says, hey, look at this, you better look, and real close, and use your head when you're doing it. It was found several years ago in one study that 57% of the medical studies done recently were based on bad data because of people using regression analysis. And it's especially bad now that we've got all these computer programs, because you don't even have to understand the math at all. You just pump in the numbers and the thing draws out the curve for you, puts it in there, and gee, it's just no problem at all. So it's really easy. A computer can help you to do some really stupid things awful fast if you don't know what you're putting in. Today, there's an awful lot of those same sort of errors are being made in environmental studies. In particular, I'm not saying that there isn't any danger there, but right now, for instance, one of the more serious abuses of this is involved with the study of power lines, the effect that electric fields have on human health. And it's not that there isn't a danger there or some kind of a problem there, but the studies that have actually been involved in studying that, a lot of them have been making a lot of these same sorts of mistakes. The mathematical process that is used to fit a curve to a series of data points is called least squares. And as assuming that you can read the material, any good statistics book will have a good exposition of it. I'd say you better know something about calculus before you pick up one of those books. Now, you can take a set of data and plot them out just the way you've seen it up here, and you can fit any kind of curve to it you want. You can fit a straight line to it, you can fit a circle to it, you can fit a growth curve to it, you can fit anything you want to it, and the math will just chug it right in there and do it. No problem. The question is the curve that you fit to it the right curve? Growth curves are actually separated into two parts. And I could not find a good example of one here at all, so I sketched up one myself. This is something typical of what you might find on a growth curve. You've got a bunch of data here, like so. You can see all the little points here. And what the mathematics will do is, if you put a growth curve in here to fit to, the mathematics will figure this out so that the distance from the data point to the curve of all these data points, say from this data point down to the curve here, all these distances is at a minimum. That's what it does. That doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. Another thing, too, is that when you actually use regression, the regression curve, a lot of people want to take this and extrapolate it out. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. There's only one place where the curve is actually correct, and that's between the data points, not anywhere outside of it. So you want to be darn careful of that. A growth curve actually consists of two parts. The Pearl curve in particular has the upper part is actually the same as the bottom. It's just turned around. At the center of this point, where this curve stops going up, the first part of this curve is what is referred to as exponential growth. No matter what it is, it's going to stop. After a while, it can't continue to grow like this. This point right here is called the point of inflection. That's where the growth actually begins to slow down, eventually level off. Howard Scott liked to call this the inevitable point of inflection. Why? Because nothing physical can keep on growing like this forever. What exactly is exponential growth? Most people can't even imagine exponential growth. Most people have a tendency to think linearly. In other words, if you added a little bit this year, this thing will keep on building and building and building. You know, you get a little bit more next year, a little bit more next year. Well, this is easy to handle. But exponential growth doesn't work that way. And most of the growth that we're looking at today is exponential growth. What happens? Piece of paper. Just a thin piece of paper. If I take this piece of paper and I fold it in half, What have I done? I've doubled the thickness of it. If I fold it in half again, I've doubled that thickness, haven't I? If I double it again, I've doubled the thickness again. Now, suppose you had a bigger piece of paper than what I had here. This is 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Suppose take a little bit bigger piece of paper, good big one, and you fold it 40 times. In other words, you double its thickness 40 times. How thick do you think that stack of paper will be? Huh? A half inch? Maybe even a foot? No. It is a stack of paper that will reach from here to the moon. You could not fold it 40 times. Because what you're doing is you're doubling what you already have. Every time you double this, you double it again. One of the oldest little gags or little fables that is told, and it was told by a Persian king back centuries, hundreds, thousands of years ago, has to do with the chessboard. The mathematician who invented chess he was admired so much by the Persian king that the king told him he could have anything that he wanted, whatever it was, just name it. Well, the mathematician came up with a good prize. He said, all right, there are 64 squares on the chessboard. On the first square, I want 1 grain of rice. On the second square, I want 2 grains. And on the third square, I want 4, and then 8 on the fourth, and 16 on the fifth, and so on, all the way on up. How many grains of rice do you think that made? It was years and years of production, of rice production, that would have actually been required to do that. It was more rice than actually was produced in the whole world. If you don't think so, try it yourself. Get a box of minute rice at home and try laying it out on the chessboard. See what you get. Problem here is we don't understand the real nature of exponential growth. It is explosive. In fact, exponential growth is the description, the chemical description of an explosion. This is what we were doing with our society, and even worse. And why Howard Scott talked about the inevitable point of inflection. It wasn't kidding. You can't keep on going like that forever. Well, Technocracy put together a set of growth curves. Many years ago. Many of you have been around here for a while. I can't believe you haven't seen this one. Nice thing about this curve is that you don't really even need any data to support it. If you've been alive during the last few years or so, you know perfectly good and well that what's here is correct. All right, what are we seeing here? A growth curve. Where does this come from? Physical production. Well, what is it that drives physical production? Well, energy. You put energy into any kind of a productive process, and what happens is you get more and more and more and more of it. Well, what happens here? Why does it stop? Why does it tail out? Because how many cars can a person drive? Some guys can drive a lot. But for the most part, people are going to have, at the very most, even if they got 2 working members in the family, 2, maybe 3, they aren't going to keep around too many more. How many suits of clothes are you going to wear? Well, when it comes to women's shoes, I don't want to say too much. But that seems to be almost infinite. But in any case, in everything that there is, you're going to get this kind of a curve when you begin to apply energy to it. Well, what's the next thing that happens? Well, the next thing that happens is that because you're not applying manpower to this,